Looks like we're ready to get started here today. We're going to fire off pretty quick here on a really interesting topic, understanding what your customers are worth. And as we dig into this topic, it's a really important one, and one that gets overlooked a lot in this industry. People simply aren't taking a look at that lifetime value and even the short-term value of a customer. Most people's expectations are far outside of the normal range of what a customer's worth in this industry. And that's a really important metric to get correct, because everything we do, the amount we're willing to spend to market to a customer, how much we're willing to work to retain a customer, etc., is based on that lifetime value, the understanding of what that customer is going to be worth to us. So if we don't have an idea of what a customer's worth, how can we possibly start to put together a plan on what we would spend to acquire them? Because there's a vast difference in what I'd be willing to spend to acquire a customer who's worth $2,000 versus one who's worth $7,000 versus one who's worth $20,000. And if I've acquired that customer, the amount of money I'm willing to spend to retain that customer again changes. Maybe they're only worth $5,000 over the course of their lifetime. Well, if I get $4,500 of that up front, how much am I really willing to spend to chase that extra $500? If the opposite's true, and that most of the revenue comes in the long term, I'm willing to spend more to retain that customer. Of course, we know for our industries, both plumbing and HVAC, if you've watched any of our stuff, that money mainly takes place during the first 30-day window, that about 80% of the value, 60% of the value you're going to get out of a customer comes in the first year. And by the end of the first 3 years, it's between 75 and 85%. So we know it's really about the short-term value in this industry. But what about the lifetime value? What does that look like for a customer? Because if we're off on this number, it can have some big consequences. And one of the things I love to talk about when we're out on the road, meeting with a contractor, we're speaking with a new client, is talking to them about their expectations in lifetime customer value. And the most common number I hear is that my customers over their lifetime are worth $15,000. Occasionally I hear 10, and once in a while 7. It varies a little bit region to region, but mostly I hear the number $15,000. I've heard it both from contractors and trainers. I've heard it in presentations. Back in my days with 1 Hour, it was a number they gave between $10,000 and $15,000 in a lot of the sales training and tech training classes we went to. The problem with that number is it's just not reality. As we look at the actual value of the customer, we can see it break down into a couple parts. The first thing we want to look at is what the value of the customer is to you year one. And you can see a representation here. This is a single company, but relatively representative of what we would call an A student, somebody who's getting a good value out of the household when they go there. And you can see the red bars here indicate the average value of that year of a new customer, somebody who's within that first year on the books. And you can see that in their most recent year, 2019, that value was $2,549. So $2,549 is what they were getting out of that house when they met a new customer, on average. Their house file customers beyond that first year, customers they've gotten back into, they've been on the books for more than a year, you can see that number's worth $1,000. And you can see the trend across the years. House file is always significantly lower. Those long-term customers are always significantly lower in their short-term value than the new customers are. The new customers are usually 2 to 3 times as valuable as your house file customers. And that holds true across most people in the industry. Obviously, there are exceptions. Most of the time, that's because those people have a sales issue or a new customer acquisition issue. But you can see that the average value here is about $2,549. This guy we would consider an A student, but that's what he's getting out of year one. But notice that dramatic fall off into year two. The problem here is you don't see a number as high as $10,000 or $15,000 or $7,000. And these numbers comparatively are relatively low versus the expectation for lifetime value. And the reason for that is really simple. When we went and did a study of over $1 billion in transactions where we were just breaking out the average value of those households, we found that as you looked across over 300 different companies, that they all kind of cluster in just a few spots. You'll notice there are a couple houses up here in the $4,000 plus range. You'll notice there are a couple over here in the $2,000 range and a couple down here in the $1,000 range, and almost nobody above the $4,000 mark. Almost everyone's lifetime value falls significantly lower than that. In fact, if you look at the top of the screen, when we analyzed just these companies, what we found is the average lifetime value of their customers was $2,548. That's looking at over 5,203 zip codes, over 487,000 households. So we're talking about a really big sample size. And the average value of those households ends up being, like I said, $2,548. So why is it so low compared to what the expectation in the industry is? Really simple. The human mind's kind of a tricky thing. It tends to remember good things more than it remembers bad things. Talk to anybody who tells you that the Farmer's Almanac has been telling them how the weather's going to be successfully for years. Catch them on and off here, and they'll say, yeah, it missed it this year. It'll probably get it next year. And every statistical study, the Farmer's Almanac, or many other things like that, will show you that they're about as accurate as a coin flip. But the human mind tricks us, and we tend to remember hits versus losses. So in this case, we do that same thing with our customers. You can see on the screen here a breakdown of where all the customers for this company fell in their value. So you can see across the bottom of the screen in their lifetime value. Was it up to $500, $500 to $999, $2,500 to $4,999, and so on and so forth. And we can see that most of their revenue, the tallest two bars here, came from customers who had a value of a value of $10,000 to $19,999 in lifetime value, and customers who had a value of $5,000 to $9,999 in value. Respectively, those two make up over $13 million in sales. And there isn't $13 million in sales combined from households that fell in any other bucket. So only the customers, all their business is really driven by the customers that spend between $5,000 and $20,000. But if we actually analyze the number of households in each of those, we find that it's a relatively low number, which is represented on here by the light blue bar that you see running across there. And you can see that these households, while they produced $7.6 million in sales, just represent a very small minority of households, just 10% of the houses. The $5,999 range represents about the same. It's about 12% of households, meaning that under 25% of their houses are producing 70% of their revenue. And we find that's true again and again. So if just a small percentage of the households are here, and if you follow this line over, you can see the greater than $30,000 households is going to be less than 1%, probably true also for the $20,000 to $29,000 households. So all the households who make more than $5,000 in value are going to represent less than 25% of the total households they go to. But notice where that blue line spikes, and that's way over here on the right of the screen. If we pull down here one more, you'll see that the vast majority of the households this contractor goes to, 46%, have a lifetime value of less than $500. And these are the people we forget about. So ask yourself the question, you could remember the person you did 2 installs for, and you can remember the person that you did a really nice install for, and they gave you a friend who you did a really nice install for, and they gave you a friend who did a nice install for. We can remember those events very well. In fact, you can probably remember the names of some of the people that you've done 2 installs for, and therein lies the problem. Because you can remember them, it means it's a special event. The people you probably can't remember are the households you went to last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where your technician went in, did a tune-up. The system was the right age, the house was the right age, but they did a tune-up and they left the household. They didn't get any extra add-ons. They didn't sell anything extra. And for most companies, That's the vast majority of the houses you go into. The average company, between 47 and 53% of the households they go into will be worth less than $500 in value. And in many cases, those houses have an average value of about $125. It doesn't really matter the size of the company. If we look at a bigger company, one where those big 2 blocks now represent nearly $30 million in sales. But again, if we pull down, we find that it's just 8% of households that are driving that in the $5,000 to $999 range, and about an equal percentage, a little bit less, coming from the $10,000 to $1,999 range. So again, less than 20% of the households they go to are driving their sales. Where are all the households captured? 65% of the households they go to are stuck in the sub $500 range. Again, this is a more extreme case, well outside of the norm, but not unusual, right? So normal range again, 47 to 53%, but just call it half. Roughly half the houses you go to are going to be worth less than $500, which drives down that average lifetime value. Because if I have a customer who's worth $10,000 lifetime and I have another customer who's worth $100 lifetime, well, the average value on those is $5,050. If I add a bunch more, which I'm going to add almost a 3-to-1 ratio of sub $500 customers, that's going to drive that number down, down, down. And that's what we see time and time again. Everyone overestimates the value over the lifetime of the customer because they overestimate the number of households that they get installs from. And so when we actually come down to the real number, what we find is this. The overall average lifetime customer value is about $2,548. If you're $500,000 to $2.5 million in sales, you're going to run about $2,190. $5 million to $10 million, you're going to run $2,489. $2.5 million to $5 million, you're going to run about $2,688. And $10 to $20 million, you're going to run about $2,957. So no one breaks, on average, a $3,000 lifetime customer value. So that changes. If you've always thought I can get $20,000 out of a household, I can get $15,000, I can get $10,000 out of a household, this changes that math. And that just seems to be the cost of doing business, that about half the houses you're going to go to are worth less than $500. So I hope that helps you. I hope it kind of paints a stronger picture for you in what your customers are really worth. And if you want to take a look at that a little more closely, or you'd like to find out what percentage of your customers fall in that sub $500 range, there's an easy way to do that. All you got to do is pick up the phone, text me, call me, shoot me an email. We'd be happy to run this same report for you and show you what percentage of your customers are driving your sales and what fall in that sub $500 range. Hey, I appreciate your guys' time today. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back with you again soon. Talk to you later. Thanks.